Thursday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Pundit's Pundit. Okay, my name is Scott Morgan Roth, dressed in blue, navy blue, my favorite color. I used to have a Jeep with navy blue, never wanted to get rid of it. But that's the problem you have when you're leasing a vehicle. You have to get rid of it. Boy, I like that vehicle. At any rate, we have a great show on tap tonight. I want everybody know that, following Pundit's Pundit, we're going to have Fire Up Candy. Ebling will be hosting that. She'll be joined by Ralph Williams, George Eichhorn, and Jeremy Ballrick. But before we go ahead and hand it off to them, I want to introduce my crew real quickly. We got Denzel the Sniper.
Hey, what's going on? How you doing, Scott?
Doing all right. Look at that man wearing the hat backwards and the microphone. He's looking really good, and he's getting ready to go to the Super Bowl. Look at that, man. I'm proud of you.
Yes, I will be there live next week. I'm going to be on Radio Row. I'll be all over the place doing interviews and getting some clips and everything, and then I'm going to tell the whole story when I get back.
I'm sure you will. I've been to 4 of them anyways, and managed to even see the games, but I know you have a good experience. And my target's to get to New Orleans a year after that. And another guy that has been to Super Bowls, at least a couple of them, George Eichhorn, one of them in Atlanta, the other one in Detroit. Welcome on the broadcast, George.
Yes, thank you, Scott. And those were good memories for me, too. Atlanta, of course, the great win by the Rams, and in Detroit, Jerome Bettis and Pittsburgh.
And last but not least, Jacob Christner, the pundit himself.
Hey, and Denzel, when you go to the Super Bowl, all you have to say is you hate Jason Whitlock, and you've got an instantaneous interview with Stephen A.
I'm going to challenge him to a cage match.
Okay.
On site, I'm going to challenge him to a cage match.
Stephen A. or Jason Whitlock?
Maybe both. It'll be Jason Whitlock.
Yeah, right.
You know what? I'm not a bettor. I probably might bet on you, though. I'll tell you what, if you end up getting...
We know JB's going to bet.
If you get to Stephen A. Smith, I guarantee you'll get a standing ovation all over the world, and you'll take all of his followers. I wouldn't bet against you. Okay? No, I don't bet. But although we have a guy that, with NGBN that sends us some pretty good betting content. So, and of course, we got George Eichhorn in the book. And just to give everybody an idea what we're going to be talk about Tony Snell. In the NBA, we've got a lot of NBA stuff, sort of. Utah Jazz and Jackie Robinson and everybody's pundit. With that said, I'll turn it over to Denzel Snaps.
All right. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and kick the festivities off this evening. And pretty good first topic we got here. And this is the situation of one Tony Snell in the NBA. And he actually needs one more year in the NBA to qualify for the retirement program. So he currently, as it stands, he needs to sign by Friday and be active for the rest of the season. He currently plays for the Maine Celtics in the NBA's G League. And himself and both sons, it actually should be noted, they're both autistic. So the medical benefits will definitely come in handy. And you see the topic of today's show is Do the Right Thing NBA. I don't know. It's one of those funny situations where we all would love this for him, but we know the ugly side of sports and how it's a business and how it's about winning. And would they even have room for Tony Snell or anything like that? I mean, he's put in work long enough. I think he does deserve it. But 10 years, okay, and I had yet to really look up the details behind this, but 10 years in the NFL, all you need is like 4, right? So, I wonder what's so... Maybe because one's a contact sport and one isn't. But I wanted to start off with Jacob Christner and get your thoughts about this. And, well, if the mark is 10, is that a bit too high? Does it need to be lowered some?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And you think about this for a second. He's got about 6.3 points a game in his career over these years, which is basically what's a 9-year career. Needs one more for the program, obviously. He's at like 6.3 points, which means he about 21 minutes a game. He'll give about take. You know what I mean? That's a bench guy. So here's the thing. With Ben Simmons continuing to stay out for every paper cut this side of the whole world, with his saying he's not on the bench, why in the world could you not use this guy? He is a tenth, easily a tenth or even less of the money that Ben Simmons makes for that bench. You've got that. Then there's some bad. I'll tell you this, George and Scott. Detroit could use him. Detroit could use an extra shooter off the bench. But this is the thing I'm bringing. We're talking about this, and we've talked about DeMar Hamlin. And DeMar Hamlin having, about 20 snaps this year just to be able to keep him around?
Yeah, isn't he 1 year away? Or actually, this would be the year.
No, 1 year away from the pension. 1 year.
Okay.
1 year from the pension. That's third year. And it's like he played 20 snaps. And it's like, what will they do for that fourth year? It's the brutal business. And this is the same here. To me, I'd give 5 to 7 years for the retirement plan. You've gone long enough.
True.
You've gone long enough. You've gone through the thing. You got to remember, that's 82 games. Let's just say with the load management and everything, we'll say 70 for a guy off the bench.
It's got to be 65 in order to,
for the MVP. But I would say 65, 70, 75 for the bench guys. They play.
Right.
And it's like, and so you're looking at times 5 to 7. That's 370 to 450, 500 games. I mean, just think about that for a second. That's more than long enough to get the retirement plan. And your knees are shot by year 7.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're starting to get shot by 5. You play all those minutes. So, I mean, I don't get why they all do this, why these leagues do this by itself, and why, because it always feels under the table. Their retirement plans, their pension plans, everything always feels like under the table. You should be doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, they should. They indeed should be doing the right thing. And it's not that he's asking for a charity, because obviously he's played 9 years in the league. And this is the NBA that we're talking about, people. I can recall when I was stationed overseas in Europe, and they had European leagues up there and such. And there have been ones who have left there, went to the NBA, and found out just how hard it is. So to even go 9 years being signed to someone's roster still is worth noticing. Some people, they play ball overseas and they're so good in China or Europe or somewhere, and they have no desire to. And I mean, we're talking about people who would like be the Kobe of their country or league, right? And it's like, why would you like going to the NBA? And they don't want to move. They don't want to move. They don't want to leave from being king in one spot and going and looking like a jester in another, because the gap between the NBA and the rest of the world is so far. But I wanted to take it to Scott and get your thoughts about this. Do you think Tony Snell deserves that 1 more year in the NBA? Or rather, let me rephrase that. Should the NBA do the right thing and take care of him, seeing as he did put in the work for 9 years?
Well, I like the first way you worded the question instead of the second way, because I don't think the NBA is capable of doing anything right anyways. I don't really care for the league. I don't cover it anyhow. Once upon a time, it was good. Now we need the play-in tournament just to get, we have an in-season tournament. They have more gimmicks on the planet just to try to generate the interest that they've lost. Here's the thing, okay? Any team that has under 15 wins, because I knew Jacob was going to go with the Pistons, so I have to modify it my way. Should sign the guy. Most cases, they're not going to make the playoffs. You'll be done by the middle or end of April anyways, and then he's met his 10 years, and that'll be that. But in life, there's perception and there's reality, okay? We are talking the NBA. One of my favorite sayings to the NBA is the NDL, the National Drama League, okay? Where we have to go out there and institute a load management because they don't want to play all 82 games, or they're finding ways to get out for every paper cut or anything on the planet all the way around, not limited to Ben Simmons. Yeah, there's no doubt about it that Tony Snell should be playing until, at least with a bad team, until the regular season's over. I hope he does. And hopefully with the February 2nd deadline, someone steps up and do it. Can you believe, guys, that we're in February? My goodness, where did January go? Wow.
Tomorrow will be 2027.
Yeah, well, you might be right. Well, I'll take the fifth on that one, because with the amount of medication I put in my spot, I'm just glad I'm here 2/1/24 hanging out with you guys. But to answer your question, Dens, I hope someone signs them. Okay, I don't expect the NBA to go out there and try to make exceptions, because if you do it with him, then what's going to end up happening is other guys are going to want to do it. I mean, DeMar Hamlin, 27, that's okay. I mean, remember, the man nearly passed away on the field, and Devin Still was a great story. So those are really good stories to begin with. But Tony Snell, I already said I hope somebody signs him. I really do, for the duration and a bad team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello, Will.
And so, with that being said, and again, it's not a charity case because he's put in the work for 9 years. So it's not out of the realm of thought. I mean, we've seen worse players get, be hang around for 10, 11, 12 years and such. Last thing, I want to go to George and get your thoughts about this. Do you think the NBA should, in theory, do the right thing and give Tony Snell what he worked so hard for?
Well, the Players Association obviously negotiates this contract, obviously, with the NBA, and they're the ones that agreed to the 10-year rule. So, I mean, I would love the NBA to do it, but I know they won't because they don't want to make an exception, because then they're going to feel like they're opening the floodgates. I do agree with what you guys said, though, is that's too long, 10 years. Most of the guys don't survive that, as we know, in the NBA. And Tony spent 1 year in Detroit. He really didn't do much, but he was a good guy, positive guy around the locker room and the clubhouse, if you will. And the Pistons had him for one season. And you're right, Dens. I mean, they can use all the help they could get right now, but it doesn't look promising for Tony. And he has this medical condition. He got a tryout in August with the Golden State Warriors, but that didn't land him a job. And then he's been, as you mentioned, with the Maine Celtics this season. But the fact of the matter is that yes, those levels, those age guidelines have to be lowered rather, because it's just not fair. There's so many deserving people in this league. And I tell you what, you got guys like Bill Russell and Ray Scott and the old guard that fought hard for the rights of the retired players. Trust me, the NBA turned its head the other way for many, many years with those guys too. So the right thing is change the collective bargaining agreement or whatever the heck it is where it's written, because I agree with you that 10 years is way too long. I do hope that Tony comes out of it with another team. He's a great guy and he's been through a lot, but you're right. He can still contribute. He can contribute minutes, points, rebounds off the bench, and deserves a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And
real quickly, I wanted to say this. You realize this is the reason I have something like this. You realize Bernard King missed the better part of 3 seasons with that knee way back in the day. Mm-hmm. He supposedly had 15 seasons. You really had 12. Barely. Wow. He barely made it. You got to realize that's Bernard King.
Yeah.
So there's, unless the things have changed, these are the things. It's like, dude, that I'm sure they would have made the exception on a star, but I'm like, we have to use our head here. We also have to use some decency also.
All right, let's go back to a chat comment that Will Vogel, and I really like this. I met Tony Snell at an NBA game a few years ago, and he signed a card for me and gave me his sweatband. Well, that's the kind of person that you want in there. There's a lot of bad character players, a lot of good ones, but come on, really? I mean, Tony Snell needs to be on a roster relatively soon, and I'd like to see him get his medical insurance. Good stuff in the chat room, Will Vogel. We really appreciate you. Yeah. Okay. So as we approach a station break, I'll go ahead and let everybody know that Pundit's Pundit is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Pundit's Pundit can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? One way to do it is in the chat room. Will Vogel's living proof of that as he appears occasionally on Fire Up. Also, send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter/X @TribuneSouth. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes as well as producing the show. I have a book out there called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders, which pretty much says old school media versus new school media. Available on Kindle and Amazon. And also another note, NGBN TV will launch on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, mobile devices. It will be in 85% of the homes in the United States. in Canada and 4.1 billion mobile devices. And George Eichhorn is kindly putting up my book. There you go. Lessons from a Microphone. You can get it at Amazon and Kindle. With that said, I'm going to turn it back over to Denzel Snipes, and he'll take us home.
Awesome book. Awesome material. Please go ahead on to Amazon or wherever it is you get your books and get this, the yellow pages of media talk, biography, wherever you want to call it. I'm telling you, this is great, hot material right off the press. You know, like back in the day, they had the old school like newspaper stands, and you put in a quarter and you got it out or whatever. You know, this something like this, like it would be flying. Like you would have an empty dispenser. Like just like that. It's that type of material, y'all. It's chock full of experiences. Please go get it. Okay. With that being said, I'm sorry, Scott. I just had to, you know.
I actually used to be a paper boy back in the day in Detroit. It was, or Southfield, a suburb of it. It was okay during the summer, but boy, those winters doing the 5 o'clock in the morning thing and going to school.
Oh, yeah.
He and I played Paperboy on Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a red wagon. I had a red wagon. Once in a while, I had a cousin to help me out to do it, but it was unbelievable.
Hey, Jacob, how many times have you achieved the rare feat of throwing the paper and it actually landing in the mailbox?
Very little. I always went for the windows.
It was hard to do. But
the windows.
We'll go on to our next topic here, and that is of Jazz owner Ryan Smith. He wants to bring the NHL to Utah. So he currently him and his wife, they head Smith Entertainment Group. They've been in talks with the NHL actually for the last 2 years. Now they also run Major League Soccer's Real Salt Lake, as well as NSWL's Utah Royals. And as far as sports in the state of Utah, you know, outside of that, it's pretty much the University of Utah Utes and the BYU Cougars, and that's it. Me personally, I think it would be a great look. Now, as someone who came up a Rockets fan, I hate the Jazz. But with that being said, it would be great. It would be great for them. You have, and they would be also in that region because, you know, well, Nevada being right next to, and you can kind of have a rivalry thing going on there. I think it would be awesome. I do. But I also would say this much is we've been seeing these teams out west getting established. So the East kind of needs to wake up here, okay? Like, when are they going to start adding teams to the East? But no, this is great. And I think something could happen here in the next probably 4 or 5 years. You know, I mean, they added, it was just in 2019, 2018-ish that they added Vegas. And then Vegas went to the Stanley Cup as fast as they did. They had just won just the year before, or just last season, excuse me. And then they added the Seattle Kraken. So these teams are coming at a fast rate, and he's trying to strike while the iron's hot, and I don't blame him one bit. I want to take it to – actually, we'll start off with George first. George, what do you think about this? NHL in Utah. How do you like it?
It does have a different ring to it, that's for sure. I mean, I never gave it much thought until recently. You know, the governor got together with Gary Bettman and the leaders of the House and the Senate there in Salt Lake City, and they actually had a pretty good meeting. I heard the owner and his wife were there, of course, Ryan Smith. And you know, as much as it sounds foreign to all of us because there are no professional sports besides the Jazz there, I mean, we really, really have to take a good look at this because you all know, and I do too, that they were great hosts for the Winter Olympic Games, Salt Lake City. In fact, that was the last time the Winter Games have been held in America. And I tell you what, it's a great town. It has great people, lots of great scenery. The basketball team has had its ups and downs, we know, but they've had some good teams there with Stockton and Malone and those guys. And I tell you what, the thing that really strikes me is that it's unproven territory, so to speak. You know, you're putting a team in there. But that's happened before. I mean, we got the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are the only team in that city. We got the Portland Trail Blazers. I mean, I'm talking about the Big Four leagues, of course, not soccer. But I think it would be really interesting. I think they got as good a chance as anybody else. I don't know. They've talked about Portland. I mean, I don't think they'll go back to Atlanta, but that's kind of been rumored too. And other cities didn't pan out like Kansas City and Cleveland. And I mean, you know, so I think it's really got a good shot. I'm intrigued by it. but I'd like to hear more details from the league and from the prospective owners.
Okay. I really think that the success and the presence of teams that are already there get looked at as well. And I'll give you an example here. The Vegas Golden Knights, their success since they've come in. The Las Vegas Aces just won, 2 straight WNBA titles now. And then you've also got the Las Vegas Raiders who managed to land there. And, well, let's face it, it's pretty much all but done, but the Las Vegas Athletics are coming. Okay. But with that being said, you look at the University of Utah Utes, back-to-back Pac-12 champions, that's success. The BYU Cougars, they've seemingly reemerged in a new conference, albeit the Big 12. And then the Utah Jazz with a ton of history there. I can foresee this. But I want to go to Jacob Christner here and get your thoughts about this. What do you think of the idea of the NHL in Utah?
Well, I'll tell you this. I'll answer this, George. Big thing about it is that there is a finalist for Forsyth County for the stadium in Atlanta. So they might go back. And I live probably 2 miles from Forsyth. It's a lot of money. I mean, not one slum in that area. A lot of money. So they will be able to afford the stadium immediately around the suburbs, if you will. But I think one of the biggest things is what they're going to be looking for the next. And it's a good possibility because Utah's a nice little sports area. It just is. The Jazz, you talk about the Utes, you talk about all of those. The big thing that you've got to realize is they're going to be careful this time who they choose because the whole thing in Arizona is an absolute disaster right now. The whole thing with that 5,000 seat stadium and a college stadium, something that kind of looks like if you're playing an NHL game and you're trying to be one of the starters, starting out your game, like when you guys start out in the small stadium and move up. That's what that place looks like. So the biggest issue that we're going to be dealing with is the NHL don't want another disaster like this again, where you're having stadium issues, you're having leasing issues, you're having all that. You got to have the money and make sure you know it. And you're going to be proving it. So it might take a little longer, but Utah would be nice because truthfully, you hear all the little deals. There's just nice people and just chill people in that town. And I think they would enjoy hockey.
Yeah. Yeah. And why not? I mean, it's from what I hear, it's not a bad place. I mean, I was stationed with some people who had been stationed at Hill Air Force Base in Utah, and they liked it. They liked the area and everything. The people were real laid back. Of course, Hill Air Force Base is in Salt Lake City, so they went on and they went on and had a great. They have a great presence there, absolutely. But something like this, and the NHL is ever growing. And how long before the NBA starts to pay attention? Because they've been talking about an NBA team in Vegas. Even LeBron James has expressed interest in owning and running said team. So, how much longer before other leagues start to take notice? How many more teams is the NHL going to add before next thing you know, NFL is adding more teams, and then there's conference realignments? What about the Major League Baseball? They may add a few more teams. We actually had conversations here on the Pundit's Pundit. I'm sorry, Scott. It was on the Sports Exchange. Or what city would have a good shot at landing a major baseball team? We threw around names like San Antonio, Charlotte. Charlotte Bats. We all know him. Our good buddy. He's trying to bring baseball to Charlotte. So it's just in the name of the expansion game. But I want to end this with Scott and get your thoughts about this. What do you think of the NHL in Utah? Do you think it would fit the culture? Do you think it would be successful? Good idea, bad idea? How you feel on it?
All right, well, let me tell you guys something. Many years ago, I was in Salt Lake City and saw 2 Utah Jazz games at the Salt Palace. And I was actually invited to a hockey game when I told one of the hockey announcers about my long, unbelievable trip that went 10,000 miles over the course of 30 days, where I really used a rental car and got a lot of mileage on it. So I ended up appearing between an intermission about my outrageous trip, and they brought me on. Number one, I'm going to go along with Will Vogel. I'd like to see if we can get that up there again. I don't blame him. Okay. I don't know if the Coyotes are a train wreck. I've been there too when they were at the America West Arena. That arena was poor. okay, and then the one you're at now, 5,000. Give me a break. Yeah, well, give me an Avalanche Golden Knights rivalry. By the way, Troy, Gary, please get in contact with me as soon as you can. All right.
Big Troy, what's going on? See you in 4 days, buddy. Sorry, Scott, go ahead.
And also, don't hold your breath about the Quebec Nordiques coming back well. All right, but let me go back to my original.
Because Quebec deserves it.
Yeah, don't hold your breath, okay? Yeah. And let me finish, Jacob. Thank you very much. This moment here, yo crazy, is brought to you by Jacob Christner. We have to get that in once a show, and we just did.
And I didn't have to pay.
Seriously, yeah, exactly. Well, you'll pay. Don't worry. Keep it up. But anyways, the Coyotes are a train wreck. That's who's going to wind up there. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that Utah's a no-brainer. You got Ryan Smith involved. You really do. The guy's got a lot of money. And Dwayne Wade's helping him on the basketball side. This guy's a shrewd businessman. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that Utah can support the NHL. I really don't. And they're ready to do it now. They really are. They can put them wherever they're going to put them and I don't know what their stadium plans, but Utah's ready. A lot more ready than you think. Atlanta may be down the road if they go to the suburbs. We'll see. But Utah's ready to, and you have to eliminate that dumpster fire that you have in Arizona. They had a decent stadium in Glendale. Didn't want to stay there. I understand it was on the west side of the valley. I get it. But whatever the Coyotes have done, they destroy. Now they're building a competitive team this year, but it's not going to take a lot to sell a 5,000 arena up. And I think the NHL is getting fed up with them. I really do. So I could see this move. It should have taken place within a year or two, at least. Much sooner than all you guys think. And again, I've been in Salt Lake City. I believe those people are ready. They're good fans. Smaller market. So, when you talk, they don't have as big a media market, which could work to their advantage. So therefore, you don't have to worry about the players being crucified through them. But when you put it all in perspective, yeah, it's a natural. It really is. Yeah. Do it. And I hope it happens ASAP.
Well, Scott said something about their being ready. I don't know if that's actually true, because part of the proposal is going to build a new hockey arena that, of course, hasn't been decided yet. So is the Jazz facility, is it available for hockey? I don't know that.
Well, but here's the thing, George. If it is available, you bring them there, okay?
Yeah.
And the question is should they agree to do that? How quickly can they get the stadium? That may take a year or two before they can get out of Arizona anyways. So if it takes about a year or two, then you're looking at a temporary facility wherever they're going to be. It's a whole lot better than what they have going on now, George.
Yeah, for sure.
I think what Scott was referring to as far as being ready, I think he meant the culture, the people.
Oh yeah,
ready.
Yeah, good point.
And I would go as far as saying they would be more receptive than let's see, Los Angeles receiving not one but two football teams. Because let's face it, the Rams won the Super Bowl, and then 2 days later they were like, what else is going on? Whereas if Utah won a Stanley Cup, like that's never forgotten. That is just like people will, that's going to be celebrated. That would be the first major title like in Utah. Like that'd be the biggest thing that happened to Utah sports since the BYU Cougars won a national championship in 1984. So with that being said, they will. I think that's right. I think they would be a lot more receptive to receiving a team than other markets. And that's not trying to say nothing bad about LA, but look at Chargers games and Rams games, even when they're winning.
Yeah, but let's go back to that comment about City of Glendale decided not to fund any part of the arena. Well, you know what? They're smart. Why should they? I've been in that stadium. My brother-in-law, my father-in-law, Candy, and I went there. We got tickets. So it was on short notice anyhow. That was a good stadium for them. Bottom line is Glendale got fed up with them. They weren't paying their bills on time. They had enough. Coyotes wanted to go to East Valley. In fact, I'll take it a step further. I know we have to be conscious of time here, but a long time ago, they took down a shopping mall in Scottsdale Road in McDowell, and they were ready to build it, but the thing fell through. They had passed a tax to get it funded, but it all fell through, and everything that the Coyotes have done has really been an absolute disaster anyhow. So I think it's time for the Coyotes to leave Arizona, and I also do believe that Utah would be the right place. I like the idea of Kansas City. They do have a stadium that's ready. Atlanta, but maybe one of these days we'll get into more details on this topic down the line. I know time restrictions won't allow us to devote more than we already have.
All right. Well, we'll go on to our third topic here, and that is the unfortunate incident of Jackie Robinson's statue being stolen and burned. So it was stolen from a park in Wichita, Kansas, cut at the ankles. It was later the authorities and first responders got a call that that a trash can, something was on fire. And so it was found in a trash can burning. It was damaged beyond repair, and additional parts of the statue have yet to be recovered. I know I haven't read or seen anything about who did it, any arrests being made, or anything like that. Definitely an unfortunate incident. Considering the man and what he's done for sports, not just one sport, but for sports, and for this to happen, most definitely undeserving. But I had a question that I wanted to propose to the panel and work with me on this one. Okay, I'm going to start off with you, George. Okay, and so here's what I have to ask: is because of the athlete and the symbolism, what Jackie Robinson did, breaking barriers for African Americans and such, because of the symbolism of the statue and who he was, could one view this as a hate crime? Go ahead.
I think so, Denzel. I really do, because this is just an atrocity. I got no regard for those people or person that did this. It's ridiculous. It really is. Kansas City is the home of the Negro League Baseball Museum. Okay, that's a destination city for anybody that wants to know about the history of the Negro Leagues, and that was put up in 1990. Okay, folks, this is 34 years later, and we're getting somebody to cut out and destroy a piece of history of a man who was a leader and a generational talent and who broke this barrier. Come on. I really think that this, to me, is a very racist action on from what I read so far, and it could be a hate crime, but there's just no way you do this kind of thing. You don't. I mean, what if somebody went and did this to the statue of Al Kaline in Detroit, or somebody did something to Stan Musial in St. Louis? Come on, there'd be this long and deserved public outcry. So there should still be this outcry, and they need to find out who did this. This is a terrible act, and I hope that they get met with the full extent of the law.
Absolutely. And when I was thinking about this, and this is the message that I would have to the people before I swing it over to Jacob, is I want you to be vigilant, okay? I want you to keep your ears open, because typically nowadays people aren't careful about concealing information, but maybe in this case it would be a good thing. But I need you to keep your ears peeled and everything, and I want you to listen around who's maybe bragging about something like this, and then help bring justice, okay? Because what happened was undeserved. So I'm going to put this on the people. I'm going to say, be conscious of your surroundings and take a good listen to anyone out there that may be bragging about something like this, bragging about doing something like this or anything like that. Because let's face it, nowadays, a lot of people of the younger generation, unfortunately, they're all about clout. They're all about oversharing if it means getting them popular and such. And so I need you to listen and pay attention, and then if you hear anything, alert the authorities. Bring these people to justice. Now I'm going to swing it over to Jacob, and I'm going to ask you the same thing. Because of the athlete and the symbolism, what he stood for and what he did, could this be viewed as a hate crime? Go ahead.
I'm going to say this part just as far as the law and politically knowing the state that it's in. It's not going to be. I'm just saying, could it be? Yes. Will it be considered that? No, because the people in a general assembly are going to absolutely say any of the ones that were torn down of the founding fathers or any of that stuff could be considered also. So I'm just saying what they're going to say, But I want to bring a little story here real fast, because this whole thing makes me sad. Do you know why? And it makes me sad because I was reading up on a thing the other day on it was just something offbeat, but I was going to say it. like the Yakuza, and one guy that was an old school time for the Yakuza was saying, we had honor then. We're talking about the Yakuza. We already know what those are. Same with the Mafia back in the 50s. You get my point? That kind of deal. They all used to say the same thing. We had the honor then. We only went after ourselves. We didn't go after the wife and kids. This has something to do with what I'm saying here. Where did we get mean? Meaner than Mafia? Where did we get this mean? This nasty? You know what I'm saying? It's like we're talking that we're worse than Mafia people as a society. We're mean. It's nasty. It's like someone had the thought process for whether revenge or whatever. Or heck, if it was going after being their TikTok and getting views. They're literally thinking the chopping off the ankles and taking a relic like that and burning it beyond repair. Someone thought of like that. Because, okay, it might be revenge, whatever. We're a nasty, nasty society. And that's not going to get, because somebody else is going to go after now. Now they're going to, now it's going to be that, begat that, and it's not going to stop till someone stops it. And it's like, just saying what you're going to say, of course it should be a hate crime. It's like anybody going after any kind of relic from the history and being this mean and nasty should be a hate crime.
Yeah.
Should be, but like knowing the state it's in, I know the state it's in and stuff like that, and any of those things it won't be. But what we just have, the worry I have with people is we're just mean. And it's like, I hope the ones that are nice out there put up the money and go get a new one for him and they protect it with their life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, Jacob, number one, I've been getting updates on this. There's more than enough money raised to go ahead and replace the statue, and they have the mold and they'll do it. Okay, so let's address that now. Number two, George, okay, you're talking about Musial and K-Line, right? Okay. Do you think that they would have their statues at a community park? Do you? Because maybe you qualify for the Are You Crazy icon, because they're not going to do it. They're going to have it at Comerica Park or Busch Stadium. Okay. Number three, let's talk about Craig Counsell. Takes a job with the Chicago Cubs, just a little jaunt down 994, right? They go to a park and vandalize his park. All he did was give everything to that city and became the winningest manager in Brewers history. What do they vandalize a sign? So yeah, I'll give Jacob credit. There's a little bit of stupidity involved there. But here's the thing. I've gone to Jackie Robinson Park here in Daytona, Florida, where the Tortugas play, and they have those statues protected, and they're watching the ballparks to begin with. So who in their right mind would not revere Jackie Robinson, which thankfully Major League Baseball has done the right thing by retiring his number unilaterally across all the ballparks.
And Scott, and they have Jackie Robinson Day where every player wears number 42. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's true, Dens. So the reality is, how do you go out there and compare situations? I don't know a whole lot about where'd you say, Wichita, Kansas? Is that where all this took place?
That's where it was, yep.
Okay, well, I don't know anything about Wichita, Kansas, so I don't want to alienate those people where you have a couple of duds ruin it for the rest of the area. I'm not doing that. But we all know that Jackie Robinson is iconic, and to cut it right to the feet, that's immaterial where they cut it. The fact of the matter is they did cut it. It was an act of stupidity. Do I think it was a hate crime? Nah, I don't know about that. It's just a lack of common sense. It really, really is. So, George, you know what? To me, don't bring up Musial and K-Line in two great baseball towns, or they wouldn't be dumb enough to go out there and put those statues in a place where they're accessible, because this whole society, unfortunately, there is a fair amount of hate out there. And all it takes, we're talking about a society where, I hate to bring these things up, but we're dealing with school shootings, and when one thing gets publicized, then all of a sudden we have a trend of doing that. And, you talk about various examples, but they'll get a new statue. But the Craig Counsell one, I think, is stupid. And there's a guy here because he went over to the Cubs, who, by the way, is, Caucasian, right? But because those Brewers fans were upset because he went to the Cubs, I understand the rivalry is what it is. But can it be that bad where you got to go out there and vandalize that sign? that's absurd. But what happened to Robinson in Wichita was a joke. I hope they land these people. I really, really, really do. And also, we have some breaking news. Let's go ahead and have Candy Ebling put it up. I'll actually say it. How's that, Denz? Okay. That Corbin Burns is headed to the Orioles for infielder Joey Ortiz, left-handed pitcher D.L. Hall, and the 34th pick in the draft. So Corbin Burns is heading over to Baltimore. All right. Thank Candy. I appreciate it. So don't think we got off track too much. Hopefully they'll get the people with Jackie Robinson. But Jacob, hate crime, to me, you would have had to have killed somebody. I don't think you wreck a material item. I'm not trying to downplay the significant.
Oh, no. Denzel asked that question.
It was me.
Right. So.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and I see that definitely, because usually whenever it's a hate crime, someone gets harmed, like, physically.
Correct.
They get beat up or they get killed, unfortunately. It's just because of like I said, it's a symbolism behind it, because at the time period that he came in, and we know what America was about at that time period, he broke barriers. He, like it was at one point there was an entire, George made note of the Negro League, like blacks had their own separate league, and then Jackie Robinson comes along and then boom, punches down those doors and everything. And so because it was, and that's why I was saying, was it racist intent? And again, we don't 100% know. We only know what we know right now. We're reporting on what we know right now.
Right.
When we catch these people, now I will say this much: when these people get caught, and authorities love to take a look at backgrounds on social medias, and you start seeing like hate rhetoric towards blacks, then yes, I would 100% label it as a hate crime. If you see that they are aligned with some sort of supremacist organization or anything like that, Now, if you don't see any of that, and if it was just two idiots just being reckless or what wanted to be, TikTok famous or whatever the hell they're doing nowadays, then of course, different story. But yeah, I asked the question just open for the panel.
All right, but let me ask you a question, okay? And about this whole topic, because it's interesting. I know we have things we need to get to, but here's one. Do they have cameras there? Do they even have an idea who these people are? So if you don't have cameras there, you never saw this coming. There's not a history. Who's to say you're going to catch these people anyways?
Yep. And then that's the reason why. That's the reason why I said, to the people out there, be vigilant, because more often than not, criminals are dumb. They'll give themselves away. They'll give themselves away. And all it takes is that wrong conversation at a bar, like, yeah, dude, we totally cut down the Jackie Robinson statue and took it away. And then that's when your ears perk up. That's when that radar goes off.
What are the odds of these guys actually admitting to that? Really, think about it. Because number one, they're going to get torn apart on social media, okay? And number two, they know what they did. So even though they're dumb, I think these guys are smart enough to know if it doesn't leave your lips, okay, then it ain't going to get out there and you're going to get away with something, and that's about it. Now, if they're dumb enough to have taken pictures of it, posted on social media, that's interesting, but that's another animal. But well, we have nothing to go on, so it's hard to say one thing. It's all premature.
It is hard to say. And in the perfect world, what you said would be 100% correct. Unfortunately, nowadays, stupidity breeds and supports stupidity. Yeah. Take a look at the crime rate in Chicago and Jacksonville, for example, and I've watched tons of documentaries on this. Nowadays, they're actually out there committing shootings, and then they're going on TikTok and they're bragging about it. Therefore, inviting cops to their house. You know what I mean? Like they're actually going to
2024.
Yes.
In fact, Candy and I one time went to a hotel because we were going to get it. We were going to go ahead and get the hotel because we went online and we found out, and there was a cop there. Said, "You sure you want to stay here?" We didn't even know where it was. They didn't have any openings. He said, "No problem." You know what we ended up doing? I know Jacksonville real well, so we went to the airport because we knew it was safe. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the thing that I'm driving home is nowadays with this generation, it's about clout and attention. They literally are risking prison sentence to do it. So if it's nothing to like shoot somebody and then go on TikTok and brag about it, then it's nothing to cut down a statue and do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But no, this is great. And maybe once we get an update, like if they catch these guys, we should probably do a part 2.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about it. We will. But right now, okay, we have all we have is just a headline and no other lines, and that's
True.
it.
True.
But it's
True.
certainly good conversation until we get to pundits' points.
Which is right now. Oh, this
All
one.
right. Great job, Denzel. Appreciate you. All right. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to lead off. Okay. The Washington Commanders hired Dan Quinn. Think it's a good hire? We'll see. Second opportunity. Okay. We'll see how well he does. And I'm going to spend more time of this on the Sports Exchange next week as well as inside the pigskin. But I realize Quinn's been a pretty good coach. Bad move. The guy who should have been there was Eric Bieniemy. Period. He was in your building. You knew what he was about. Now, you want to connect the dots and say he was part of Ron Rivera's coaching staff, you can do it. But I will be writing a story for the South Florida Tribune as well as Sideline Sports on Eric Bieniemy. I'm not saying Dan Quinn isn't a good coach. He did some pretty good things in Atlanta. The only thing he didn't do was win a Super Bowl, but it's in second opportunity. With all the diligence that Washington did, and I mean, they took as much time, if not more than anybody, because Ron Rivera was one of the first to be let go. I'm not endorsing the hire by the Commanders. To me, they look like the Washington Generals with this hire. Remember them? Harlem Globetrotters, Washington Generals? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right, George, go ahead.
Well, I'll stick with the coaching line too here. All the so-called experts, they were saying the Lions were going to lose their coordinators, Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. And look what happens. They stayed in Detroit. Now, the story, as some of them are saying, is his demands were too high. Johnson's demands were too high. And then the other part of it is, I think, those coaches are at a disadvantage only because the Lions kept winning and kept marching through the playoffs. They did not have ample time for an in-person interview. But the fact of the matter was, supposedly the Washington hierarchy was on a plane headed to Detroit to interview both these guys. And that was not a good move. That was not a good move to say you're not going to do it after they said they're going to come and see you in person. I don't know all the details on that. But the fact of the matter is that the coaches in Detroit are valuable. They are valuable. Randall L. is another one. Mark Brunell. I mean, there's a lot of them. You go down the list that are probably in line for maybe offensive defense coordinators or assistant head coaching jobs and things like that. But these two coordinators that they had now were obviously first-class material. So, yes, Scott, I too was surprised what the Commanders did, but I was surprised in the other direction, the fact that they didn't have a deal that Johnson could have. Except that being said, he's got a lot of good things coming back to Detroit. Everybody's happy about it, and he'll do well for himself. And Aaron Glenn, very well liked too. He was one of the best liked assistant coaches. They had a poll among the players that you guys I know heard about, and he was right at the top. So Detroit's blessed with these two coordinators, and a little bit of egg on the face of some of the reporters who thought they had both of them going.
Well, let me tell you this, since I am from the Detroit area, and I don't like to talk about everybody's parting shots, but I'm going to do it tonight, especially with you. Number one, okay, there's nothing wrong with going deep. I had to get my echo of the deep out here, by the way. Deep into the playoffs, because you know what? Do you think Ben Johnson wanted a job where he goes ahead and takes it, and all of a sudden he does such a poor job because there's no talent around him and never gets hired again? So that's not a big deal, George. It really isn't. That happens with everybody. It wasn't just Johnson and Glenn. You know, that's item number one. So the reality is this, okay? You know, he's happy and he's loyal and he feels he's got unfinished business. Can't knock him for that. Aaron Glenn, they'll get hired. I'm questioning the hire of Dan Quinn and talking about Eric Bieniemy, but this is your parting shot. I'm not trying to steal any thunder on the whole thing. I'm really not. But when the time comes, Ben Johnson will get, when it's time to go, he'll leave. Right now, he doesn't feel that it is. Okay, Denzel, do you have any parting shots?
I didn't have a parting shot, but I did want to mention about the Dan Quinn hire. I do like the fact that he is back in the driver's seat again as a head coach. Whoo! I don't know if you saw me make that face when you said that, but like, because the Commander's job was arguably the most undesirable head coaching job, but in all fairness, they're trying to turn the culture around, and it would be great if you were a part of something that, trust me, being a fan of a team that was trying to turn the culture around, I know all about that. And you see how the Texans did this year, So in all fairness, I mean, all that other raggedy, toxic stuff is gone, and it's a new time. And while I do agree heavily that Bieniemy should be head coach, at least with Dan Quinn, a guy who had taken he was the architect of the Legion of Boom. He took the Falcons to a Super Bowl. He's been on the big stage before on 3 different occasions. Went to it Seattle as a defensive coordinator, one as a head coach. He turned Dallas into a top 5 defense. So, let's see what he does with the Commanders. Let's see what he does this draft. Let's see what that front office does. But I want him to give him a shot. All right, that's all I got. I'm sorry, y'all.
Well, that's okay. I'm glad you had one. All right, well, there you go. Let's go to the Mr. Opinion himself, aka Pundit.
I had one tonight that was going to be actually the Steve Garvey thing, but it's going to go too long over, so I'm not going to do that. But I've got one thing here. The whole Bieniemy thing. Eric Bieniemy has been somebody I've been wanting from the Bears for 5 years now. You guys have heard me for the time I've been with Sideline Sports, with South Florida. I want Bieniemy. I love the guy. But here's the thing. This Eric Bieniemy to me is the exact deal is the exact new era of what Bruce Arians had to deal with. Bruce Arians was not the head coach until he was 60 years old, and it took Chuck Pagano to get sick to get it, to be able to get an interim, and then he got it. And it's like, and why did it take so long? Because he wouldn't kiss tail, if we can say it that way. He wouldn't be political. He wouldn't say what was the right thing. Otherwise known as trying to get Jerry Jones's attention, if you get my point. He wouldn't do any of that. And now we're dealing with Bieniemy. And it's like, this is the thing I want to ask. This is everything I'm going to go to the people of the egos, all the owners, the front offices, everything like that. If Bruce Arians succeeded and Eric Bieniemy can, then you might want to look past your ego and start looking toward those kind of guys instead of getting a Dan Quinn. Because Dan Quinn's a very boring choice. There are boring choices out there. Dan Quinn is the North Turner of the Wade Phillipses. He just is. It's just a boring. They're great coordinators. They're just boring choices. It's time to stop using your ego and start looking toward the other way.
Well done, Jacob. All right, well, that concludes this edition of Pundit, but we're not going away yet. We have some station information as well. I will start with it now that Pundit's being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Pundit can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Okay, please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? Participate in the chat room or send your topic ideas, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Want to advertise cost efficiently? Give me a call at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter/X @Tribune South. Candy Emblems behind the scenes, as well as producing this show. I have a book out there called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. Pretty much relates old school versus new school, available on Kindle and Amazon. And one last time, NGBN has launched on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and mobile devices. It will be in 85% of the homes in the United States and Canada, and 4.1 billion mobile devices. All right, we're going to start top to bottom real quickly. George, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
Yeah, you can follow me in the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune banner, where I write sports. And there's a link at the end of every article of mine if you're interested in my book, which is Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. Scott's in the book, and a lot of famous sports people are in that book as well. You could follow me at gicorn@yahoo.com, and also on Twitter or X on SanGSports99, or on LinkedIn under my name as well. and look forward to this program every week, as well as other programs, including the 108 Stitches and the Sports Exchange.
Okay, on to Jacob.
I am the Pundit's Pundit. I am the Pundit's Pundit here, and I am on this. I am on the Sports Exchange and a couple of other shows along the way. I'm also Jake the Pundit on Twitter or X, and Jake the Pundit on the TikTok, and a few other places in between.
Okay, lastly, Denzel Snipes. And by the way, have a good time out in Vegas.
Hey, no problem. I'm going to take a lot of great material. Yes, you heard correct. I will be out live on location all Super Bowl week and Vegas covering the Super Bowl next week. You can catch me at Denzel Sniper 13 on Twitch. Also catch me on Denzel Snipes 13 on YouTube, as well as Denzel Snipes on Facebook. Gauntlet Fridays. This Friday will be the third annual Gauntleys. We will be going over awards for Rising Star Player, Offensive Rookie of the Year, you name it, even Sports Moron and Non-Sports Moron of the Year. It is the third annual Gauntleys. Tune in Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern.
All right, well, that does conclude this edition of Pundit's Pundit. Fire up his neck, Candy Abilene, Ralph Williams, George Eichhorn, Jeremy Ballrick will be there. So on behalf of Denzel Snipes, George Eichhorn, Jacob Christopher, and your host, myself, Scott Morganroth. Thanks for joining us on this edition, and we will see you next Thursday night. Good night, everybody.